The clock has struck zero. The 72-hour window has closed. In the silent corridors of Washington and the tense command bunkers of Tehran, the final grains of sand have fallen through the hourglass. For 3 days, the world held its breath, waiting for a response to Iran's unprecedented ultimatum. That response never came. What comes now is the kinetic reaction. Tonight, we are not reporting on diplomatic maneuvering or political posturing. We are reporting on the movement of steel, the deployment of combat-ready divisions, and the activation of kill chains across the entire Middle East. The Islamic Republic of Iran has initiated a full-spectrum mobilization of the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. This is not a drill. This is not a strategic bluff. This is the implementation of a threat. A meticulously planned escalation, placing the region on an undeniable war footing. For the next 20 minutes, we will break down the intelligence. We will analyze the force dispositions, the assets being brought to bear, and the strategic implications of Washington's calculated silence. This is breaking the front, and this is the situation as it stands right now. First, we must understand the casus belli, the catalyst for this crisis. The 72-hour ultimatum was not delivered through public channels or fiery speeches. It was transmitted discreetly through the Swiss embassy in Tehran, the formal diplomatic intermediary between Iran and the United States. Our sources within the intelligence community have confirmed the 3 core demands, each a direct challenge to American power projection in the region. Demand 1. The immediate and verifiable withdrawal of Carrier Strike Group 10, led by the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower, from the Persian Gulf and the Arabian Sea. Tehran designated these waters as a non-negotiable sphere of influence and declared the carrier's presence a direct threat to national sovereignty. This was an explicit attempt to dictate the operational freedom of the U.S. Navy. Demand 2. The immediate reversal of the Treasury Department's latest sanctions package targeting key financial institutions and front companies linked to the IRGC's Quds Force. These sanctions, imposed just 2 weeks ago, were designed to cripple Iran's ability to fund its proxy network across the Levant and Yemen. Tehran viewed this not as economic pressure, but as an act of financial warfare. Demand 3. A binding, public assurance from the White House, delivered via the same Swiss channel, guaranteeing a complete cessation of all covert intelligence and kinetic operations on Iranian soil. This was a direct reference to the series of mysterious explosions at sensitive nuclear and missile facilities over the past 18 months, which Iran has consistently attributed to a joint U.S.-Israeli sabotage campaign. Washington's response was deafening silence. No press conferences. No official statements. No back-channel acknowledgments. From the Pentagon's perspective, any official reply would legitimize the ultimatum, setting a dangerous precedent where American military posture could be dictated by threats. Behind the scenes, however, the silence was a cover for intense preparation. U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM, quietly elevated its Force Protection Condition, or FPCON, to Charlie at all major installations from Kuwait to Qatar. This signifies that an attack or terrorist act is imminent. Leave was cancelled. Perimeter security was hardened. At Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, the largest U.S. base in the region, flight crews for F-22 Raptors and B-52 Stratofortresses were placed on strip alert, ready for launch within minutes. Naval assets began to reposition. While the Eisenhower held its position in the North Arabian Sea, just outside the Persian Gulf, its escorts fanned out, creating a wider, more resilient defensive screen. Subsurface, our sources indicate at least 2 Los Angeles-class fast-attack submarines were tasked to shadow IRGC naval bases at Bandar Abbas and Bushehr, their primary mission being to track the deployment of Iran's Ghadir-class midget submarines. This calculated silence was a high-stakes gamble. The White House bet that Iran was bluffing, that the ultimatum was a desperate diplomatic gambit from a regime under immense internal and external pressure. As of 3 hours ago, it is clear that bet has failed. Tehran is calling. The mobilization we are now tracking is unprecedented in its scale and speed since the height of the Iran-Iraq War. This is not a partial alert. It is a nation preparing its military arm for conflict. We will break it down by vector and branch, beginning with the IRGC ground forces. Vector 1. The western border. Elements of the IRGC's 19th Fajr Armored Brigade and the 33rd Al-Mahdi Mechanized Infantry Division have been geolocated, moving en masse towards the Iraqi border, concentrating near the Shalamcheh and Mehran border crossings. These are heavy units, equipped with upgraded T-72 tanks, known locally as the Karar, and Borog armored personnel carriers. Their deployment serves a dual purpose: to intimidate U.S. forces stationed at Al-Assad and Erbil in Iraq, and to reinforce supply lines to their Shia militia proxies, the Popular Mobilization Forces. Vector 2. The eastern border. Simultaneously, units from the Zahedan-based 110th Salman Farsi Division are digging in along the border with Afghanistan and Pakistan. This is a defensive maneuver. Tehran is acutely aware of the potential for destabilization from Sunni militant groups in this region, and a conflict with the West would be the perfect opportunity for these groups to strike. The IRGC is securing its rear flank, ensuring it does not have to fight a war on two fronts. Vector 3. The southern coastline. This is the most critical axis of movement along the entire coastline of the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz. The IRGC Navy, or IRGCN, is executing a massive dispersal and hardening operation from Bandar Abbas. Hundreds of small, fast-attack craft, the infamous swarm boats, have left their consolidated pens and scattered to clandestine coves and civilian ports along the coast. These boats, armed with anti-ship missiles and torpedoes, are Iran's primary tool of asymmetric naval warfare, designed to overwhelm the sophisticated defenses of a U.S. carrier strike group with sheer numbers. Alongside this, land-based anti-ship missile batteries are being activated. We have confirmed the deployment of Noor and Gator missile systems, reverse-engineered versions of the Chinese C-802, from their garrisons to camouflaged, pre-prepared launch sites overlooking the Strait of Hormuz. And any vessel passing through this critical choke point, through which 20% of the world's oil flows, is now squarely in their crosshairs. But the most alarming intelligence relates to the IRGC Aerospace Force. This is the crown jewel of Iran's military, the guardian of its ballistic missile arsenal. For the past 48 hours, U.S. reconnaissance satellites and signals intelligence have tracked a mass exodus of transporter erector launchers, or TELs, from their known bases. Missile units armed with the Fateh 110 and Zulfiqar short-range ballistic missiles are being moved to operational launch areas in western Iran. These are precision-guided, solid-fuel missiles, capable of being launched with minimal preparation time. Their targets are clear: U.S. bases in Iraq, like Al-Assad, and key command and control nodes in Kuwait and eastern Syria. Further east, in the central mountain ranges of Iran, a far more strategic threat is emerging. TELs for the GHADR 110 and SEJJIL, two medium-range ballistic missiles, are being dispersed into hardened tunnels and camouflaged positions. These liquid-fueled and solid-fueled missiles, respectively, have the range to strike targets across the entire Arabian Peninsula, Riyadh, Dubai, and crucially, the U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet headquarters in Bahrain, and the forward headquarters of CENTCOM at Al Udeid in Qatar. And then there are the drones. Iran's drone fleet, once a novelty, is now a battle-proven and formidable weapon. We are seeing the mass activation of Shahed 136 kamikaze drone units. These are not being held in reserve. They are being moved to launch sites co-located with proxy forces in Iraq and potentially Syria. The strategy is clear: to use plausible deniability by launching attacks from outside Iran's borders, complicating any U.S. response. Finally, there is the Quds Force, the IRGC's elite external operations wing. Their mobilization is less visible but perhaps the most dangerous. Our intelligence indicates that the commander of the Quds Force, Brigadier General Esmail Qahtani, held an emergency meeting in Beirut with Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah just 36 hours ago. Similar communiques have been sent to their proxy commanders in Iraq, Syria, and to the Houthi leadership in Yemen. The message is simple: be ready. The entire axis of resistance is being placed on a trigger alert. The regional reaction has been swift and panicked. Israel has placed its entire air defense network, from Iron Dome to David's Sling and the Arrow 3 system, on its highest state of alert. The Israeli Air Force is maintaining constant combat air patrols along its northern border with Lebanon and Syria. In a terse statement, the Israeli Minister of Defense stated, "Anyone who seeks to harm the state of Israel will be met with a response of unprecedented force." In the Gulf, the mood is one of extreme anxiety. Saudi Arabia and the UAE have put their energy infrastructure on lockdown. Patriot and THAAD anti-ballistic missile systems are active, their radars scanning the northern skies. Brent crude oil prices have already spiked over 12% in after-hours trading on this news alone, a tremor signaling the potential for a global economic earthquake if the Strait of Hormuz is closed. This brings us to the central, terrifying question: what happens now? The United States is faced with a stark choice. It can continue to hold its posture, call what it believes is an elaborate bluff, and risk a surprise first strike on its forces, or it can preemptively strike the IRGC assets that are now moving into the open, an act that would unquestionably initiate a full-scale war. The IRGC's mobilization is a masterful piece of coercive strategy. By dispersing its most valuable assets, it is simultaneously making them harder to destroy in a single, decapitating U.S. strike, and signaling an undeniable readiness to absorb a first blow and retaliate massively. They are communicating in the only language they believe the Pentagon truly understands, the language of force disposition and credible threat. The Iranian leadership has backed itself into a corner. After making such a public, albeit through diplomatic channels, and specific threat, and after executing such a massive and costly mobilization, de-escalating without a major concession from the U.S. would be a catastrophic loss of face, both domestically and internationally. They have climbed so far out on this limb, they may not be able to climb back. The White House gambled that this was theater. But the IRGC has now set the stage, moved the actors into place, and raised the curtain. The first act of this tragedy is over. The silence from Washington may have been intended to project strength, but it may have been interpreted in Tehran as arrogance. A final dismissal that made a kinetic response inevitable. We are now in the most dangerous moment in the U.S.-Iran relationship in over 40 years. Every action, every radar lock, every patrol boat's change, of course, could be the spark that ignites the powder keg. So I leave you with this question. A question our leaders in Washington are undoubtedly asking themselves in the Situation Room right now. Is this massive mobilization the final, desperate gambit by Tehran to force the U.S. to the negotiating table and gain leverage? Or are we past the point of no return, witnessing the final, irreversible steps towards a catastrophic war in the Middle East? Let us know your analysis in the comments below. For minute-by-minute intelligence updates and in-depth analysis as this crisis unfolds, make sure you are subscribed to Breaking the Front and have activated all notifications. Stay safe and stay informed.